So it's 40 years after the dreadful events of February 1985, and we remember these young men and we pay homage and we pay respect to them and to their plans. And I want to extend once again my solidarity on your behalf to the Devine and the Breslin families, to Charles's father Joe, his mother Mary, who died in 2022, his brothers and sisters Martin, Marie, it's her birthday today, she's 75. Charlie, 65. I'm dead. To Monica, to his twin Teresa, to Karina, to Linda, and to his brother Joe. Joe passed away sadly just before Christmas, and Joe was at the heart of the community here in Strabane and a steadfast Republican in his own right, and his death is another tragic blow to the Breslin family, so you remain in my thoughts and in all of our thoughts at this difficult time. And to Michael and David's parents, Patsy and Billy, who are both now our Slee and Aranya on the road to truth. When someone dies, the Irish phrase we use is that they're on the way of truth, our Slee and Aranya. And I know all the answers. So, Tamajik Sweeney Fruit, so we're thinking about you also. And to his sisters Kathy, Antoinette, and Sheila, and their older brother Q, who was a former political prisoner, and he died a few months after his release in 1983. And it's widely believed that a severe beating he received at the hands of British soldiers was a contributory factor in his death. And as I said earlier, we're thinking also of Vic McFarlane's family, his wife Lena, his son Tomas, his daughters Tina and Emma. Vic passed away today after an illness. I've known Vic for 50 years, and he's a great warrior, great songwriter, and I was thinking of how to describe him, and the best way I can describe him is, don't let's go. It's a Bobby Sands trusted hand. So, Slán Awalya, Vic Boston. So the families of all our patriot dead have suffered grievously, and I saw the father, he walked past me, of young Cha Love. I didn't get talking to him, so wherever you are, I just want to say that I'm glad that you're here and that the Love family are here also. Now, Michael was just 22, and David was only 16, and Charles Breslin was just 20. So think about it, those of my age and maybe slightly younger. David wasn't even 1 year old when the Battle of the Bogside took place, and Charles wasn't much older. And as they grew into teenagers and young men, they came face to face each day with the reality of conflict, of British military occupation, of the dire economic and social consequences of partition. And Strabane suffered more than most nationalist areas in the north. Partition separated this region, this town, out from its natural hinterland in Donegal. Discrimination ruled. Unemployment was endemic. Gerrymandering of the electoral boundaries was widespread. Housing was appalling, and many local people were forced to emigrate in search of work. And Charles and Michael and David's politics were shaped by all of this, by the conditions in which they lived, by the way that they saw and experienced the brutality of the British Army or the RUC, the UDR, and by events in the 1970s. And the 1981 hunger strikes and the example of courage demonstrated by Bobby Sands and his 9 comrades made its mark on these 3 Strabane volunteers, as it did on many, many thousands of others. Michael Devine was the oldest of the 3. He was a former junior Irish snooker champion. He was well known. He was liked by all who knew him. And Michael joined the army, joined Oakley Hearn in 1984. Charles Breslin was a novice reader of Irish history and politics and a keen fisherman. He joined the Féin at 15, and he became a volunteer 2 years later. In 1984, he was tortured in the infamous Castlereagh interrogation centre in Belfast, where he was smothered with a bag being forced over his head until he passed out. And David Devine was the youngest of the 3. He was 16. He loved punk music, and while most of his youthful pursuits would have been typical of his peer group, during the early 1980s his political outlook was shaped and sharpened. He joined the Féin at the age of 14 and in the army around the time he turned 16. And these 3 young volunteers were killed in a shoot-to-kill action by SAS soldiers as they made their way across a field. They presented no threat to the soldiers who shot them in a hail of bullets. Their bodies were left lying in the field for hours and were only removed after local women protested. And Martin McGuinness and I came to Strabane for the funerals. We met with the Devine and Breslin families, and it was my great pleasure to meet with them, those who have survived again this evening. And understandably, they were greatly traumatized and shocked at the sudden loss of their beloved sons. They were also gracious. They welcomed me and Martin and others into their homes. And as was the norm, the British Army and the IUC swamped the area. Hundreds of soldiers and IUC officers from over 100 armoured IUC Land Rovers put on a huge show of strength. 3 British Army helicopters flew low overhead. All of this was intended to intimidate and to harass mourners. It failed. Thousands upon thousands attended the funerals. The people of Strabane joined the Devine and Breslin families in refusing to be bullied and refusing to be terrorised by the British state. They were proud of these 3 young men. They were proud and in awe of their youthful audacity and bravery, and they were determined to demonstrate this by attending their funerals. And yes, there was a sense of shock. There was a sense of disbelief in the town, but there was a spirit of defiance, a spirit of resistance. And I had the honour of giving the oration at Charles's funeral. And at the graveside I said, "Tír gra" is the Irish expression for the English word patriotism. Tír gra means love of country, love of one's people. And it was this love, this wish to be free, this undeniable desire to strive for freedom and to resist foreign occupation, that's what motivated those whom we honoured that day and whom we buried that day. And these words, that sentiment, is as appropriate today, 40 years later, as it was then. Today, we're just as proud of these young volunteers as we were 40 years ago. At their graveside, I also commended the steadfastness and the courage of the families. I do so again today. I spoke in Strabane at a commemoration to mark their 20th anniversary, and I said then that it was essential that everyone recognises that there could be no hierarchy of victims. I said all sides have suffered. But there are those who say even today that we should not be allowed to commemorate our patriot dead. There are those who say that Michael and David and Charles should be forgotten. that there should be no commemoration like this evening. Yet these same people see nothing wrong in working with loyalist paramilitaries or venerating British state forces who killed civilians or ran death squads and agents. And there are those who use hurtful and resentful descriptions of our patriot dead. What purpose does that serve? What purpose does that serve 40 years after the killings? Now, we can say to them, we mightn't agree with them on the past, and they mightn't agree with us. But we should respect that there are different narratives. There are different stories to be told, because the reality is that there isn't just one narrative. There isn't just one side of the story. And when you put all the stories together side by side, you get the complete picture. And that also shows, when we get the complete picture, that our divided people have a lot in common. We're United Irelanders, so our duty is to unite people, to build on the progress that has been made, and to do so in the knowledge that no one any longer has to lay down their lives on the line on active service. 1 year ago this month, history was made when Michelle O'Neill became First Minister. That's something I'm sure that the older people here, and Michael and David and Charles' parents and grandparents, would never have thought possible. They, if they thought about it at all, would think they would never see the day that a Republican would be the First Minister, because the northern state, this state was designed to prevent that from happening. But like Michael and David and Charles, Republicans never accepted second-class status. We never stopped. We never gave up. We persisted. We never gave up on the ongoing process of change, or the struggle for Irish unity and national self-determination. And that's why Irish republicanism is stronger in this island than it has ever been in over a century. And all of this has been achieved with hard work and many, many sacrifices. But crucially, there's now a peaceful way to achieve an end to the union with England. So be sure of that. If we continue doing what we're doing, if we continue to build Sinn Féin, if we continue to work with other people, if we stay united, if we're active, if we stay cohesive, if we act intelligently, that's how we're going to end the union. It's there for us. It's a doable project for us to accomplish. Imagine that. Imagine that some of the younger people here will grow old in a united Ireland. Because that opportunity didn't exist in 1798 or 1916, or for Bobby Sands or Mairead Farrell, or for Charles, or for Michael, or for David. Unity is within our grasp if we work and make the effort to achieve it. So I want to commend the work of Mary Lou MacDonald and Michelle O'Neill and all our elected reps, including the locals in this constituency, and others who are reaching out. It's a hard thing to do, to try and make friends with our unionist neighbours. And we should all try to do that. And we also need to keep tackling the social and economic problems. Fighting for equality is totally complementary to fighting to bring about constitutional change. And thankfully, we're now all in a better place, despite the efforts of the British government and others to undermine the good work that's been done by many, many people. So it's not good enough for an Taoiseach, Micheál Martin, or for Simon Harris to refuse to plan for the future. Who doesn't plan for the future? We all do it in our own homes, our own families. Even to get here tonight, we had a plan to get here. So there is an imperative on the Dublin government to establish citizens' assemblies to facilitate discussion on what sort of an Ireland we want to live in. And the gift of my generation, the gift of the brave Republicans like Michael and David and Charles, who fought and died 40 years ago, our gift is for today's generation who can now end the union with England peacefully. It won't be easy. There will be many challenges, but we're up for those. So I want to thank you for keeping the faith. I want to thank the unbroken people of Strabane and West Tyrone, and all our local leaders here, Tamich, Queer, Wake, Devsha, Gulliar. We've travelled a long road together. I'm meeting people here tonight that I first met 40 years ago. That's a long time. But we've travelled that road together. We now need to reach the end of the road. We now need to finish it together. And that is finally to conclude Sinn solidarity to the risen people of Palestine. And I want to commend the Sinn Féin leadership's decision not to celebrate St. Patrick's Day with President Trump. For almost 80 years, the people of Palestine have been the victims of Zionist aggression, displacement, occupation, and genocide. In the last year and a half, an estimated 60,000 Palestinians, mostly women and children, that's over 4 times the population of Strabane, have all been killed. So we in Ireland strongly identify with the experience of the Palestinian people, and we support their right to self-determination and freedom. So folks, our struggle goes on. In our thousands, in our millions, we are all Palestinians. In our thousands, in our millions, shout out, we are all Palestinians. In our thousands, in our millions, we are all Palestinians. So, Mila Graves, thanks again for keeping faith. Enjoy the rest of the evening, and thanks for all your sacrifice and for all your work. Bunyeri and Ta Letsha Bunyar.
Folks, we're going to do a wee presentation on behalf of the West Tyrone Republican Movement to Gerry Adams.